And welcome in to the Four Focals Podcast, episode 140 here on this Halloween Eve. Happy Halloween, really, to a lot of you who celebrate. I do, of course. No, of course, I'm not going trick-or-treating at all, but, we still celebrate, at least at least for me, I celebrate it. But hopefully everyone's having a good day. Of course, it's a beautiful Chamber of Commerce day here in Jacksonville, Florida, high atop Jacksonville, Florida. By the way, new clip-on mic. Probably can't see it. There it is. We finally upgraded. Finally, after so much time now. I'm going to make sure you guys can actually hear me. Make sure the audio is working. I was playing around with it yesterday, but I just want to make sure it was actually working. So I'm going to go here to the sharing my computer over here, and we'll see if the audio is actually, you can actually hear me. So let me check and make sure. Okay, guys, can you hear me? That's great. So it is working. So hopefully the audio sounds a lot better. I know that was something that I was thinking about doing for a long time, buying one of these little, here's what they look like. So this right here, but, they're fairly affordable if you need one for doing podcasting like me. Actually, we've had a lot of different microphones, a lot of different equipment over the years. At one point, I was even using my phone. This is a new phone, I guess. I don't know. That's what we're starting off on. Then I moved to my computer. Now it's our iPad here, and now we're using both. We also have the headset for the audio only, folks. So, audio upgrades, always a good thing to have. Hopefully it works after the listen to the replay. But, big episode today. Got a lot of things to talk about. LSU coaching search, updates there. The governor, Tom Landry, speaking for the first time since the firing of Brian Kelly. We have more college ball predictions. Believe it or not, we still have two games, one in the Big 12, one in the Big 10. We didn't get to on the Tuesday show. And then we also have college football upset alerts as usual every single Thursday. And then we have talk about the Buccaneers, but since they're not playing this week, they're off this week. They have Patriots the following week, next Sunday, next coming up Sunday. Figured, as we usually do, midseason grades around this time of the year. So we'll be doing that. Of course, if you are new here, first of all, welcome in. We talk about college football, Marvel and Star Wars news when it's available. Right now, we're kind of in a dead period right now, sort of between different projects and stuff that are not coming for at least for a while. But we talk about those occasionally, especially when things really start to heat up. We also talk about the Buccaneers as well. As a Bucs fan, again, they're off this week, but we'll do the midseason grades for both the offense, defense, and special teams. Sort of recap of where things have been so far. But we talk mainly college football. A big contingent of our show is college football, and that's what our show does here. So if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. First of all, that would be great if you did that. If anything happens, I don't sign you up for anything. I don't, knock on your door, stuff like that. I don't like force you to sign anything. You don't have to pay me anything. None of this stuff's behind the paywalls. Everything that is available to you is available to you. So it's all available for free of charge. There's nothing that you need to pay me for, because why would I be needing your money? I don't need your money. I don't need your money. But yes, make sure to follow us on the YouTube channel, like the streams and the videos when we do those. And also be sure to follow us on Spotify as well. That's where we started out at. Okay. That was our beginning. Okay. Humble beginnings. Was on Spotify doing just audio only shows. And we eventually moved over to YouTube. Didn't have the face cam yet because we just didn't have the ability to do that yet. Now we do. So that's great. And be sure to follow on Spotify. That's helps us out a lot too. I don't get a lot of traction over there anymore. We used to, but we don't now anymore. X, Twitter, follow us there as well at 4birds_pod. And now, I forgot to mention this on Tuesday. I don't think I mentioned it. We're on Instagram now. Yes, we are on Instagram. We have an Instagram page now, under 4_verticals_pod on Instagram. Be sure to follow over there. That should all be in the channel description. I believe it should also be maybe in the actual. I'll remind you guys on Twitter later. But make sure to subscribe to the podcast feed. Follow me on X, Twitter, and also on Instagram as well at 4_verts_pod on Instagram. So that's new. We'll be doing content there in the future. Maybe we'll see. Who knows in the future? But let's get started here. And again, hopefully the audio sounds great. I'm assuming it does, because again, we're using an actual microphone, at least on the YouTube side of things. On the Spotify side of things, look, I've some headset on and whatnot, so that should be no problem with that. But in terms of the actual YouTube stuff on stream hopefully should sound a lot better going forward. So instead of using the iPad microphone, my iPad microphone's fine. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. It just the actual microphone, like the clip-on stuff, like this right here, the other copy I have, it sounds a lot better. So hopefully the audio would sound better. I know that's something that we've been not getting like complaints about, but just some constructive criticism behind the scenes. So hopefully this will work out a little bit better. All right, so let's start out with oh boy, the LSU coaching search. Yeah, it should be great, right? Now it's another day. We're still alive, whatnot. You know, the world's not ending and whatnot. We're all good. Well, the LSU coaching search, of course, has been about, 4,800 plus hours since Brian Kelly was fired. We are now on, day 4 or now, day 3 or 4 on the coaching search. Of course, this will be continuing for a while, I'm afraid. This will not be one of those situations, more likely, where the coaching search is going to get done in, like, late November, early December. Like, I don't expect that to happen. I believe this will not be resolved until, like, after the new year. At least I'm thinking, at least that's my thinking. Mainly because, well, one, there's no transfer portal anymore once the coach gets fired. You cannot enter your name in the database. I think a lot of folks forget that. That's a new rule that they passed. The NCAA did pass about like a month ago. So like Virginia Tech was like the last school to sort of go through the whole midseason players leaving and whatnot. So like Penn State didn't have to deal with it. Florida didn't have to deal with it. LSU doesn't have to deal with it. So your roster's fine unless guys just opt out or whatever. But in terms of them actually leaving and like just leaving the school in general, then no, they can't do that. But so besides that, I know there's been a lot of names that have been thrown out there. We'll sort of touch on that again here in a moment. But the new developments, not new, but just stuff that maybe we were hearing behind the scenes sort of begin to percolate. You know how often I use that word. Stuff that was percolating behind the scenes that have sort of gone public and now have basically it's sort of like you're airing out your dirty laundry. Your LSU. Now it's not exactly like that, but that's what it feels like. So Tom Landry, the governor of Louisiana, you know how very rare we talk about politics here. Very rare we do that. But in this situation, because LSU is a state university, the local government in the state of Louisiana has to be involved. It's a state university. It's Louisiana State University, not Louisiana University. It's Louisiana State University. It'd be like the same thing with Florida State University. So the governor, Tom Landry, has been there for a couple of years now, I believe. Again, we don't cover politics here. I don't follow it. I don't know how long he's been there for. I'm sure he's been there for a while now. But anyway, Tom Landry, the governor down there, had a press conference yesterday, not related to the Brian Kelly stuff. He was doing something else, I believe, some like bill signing or whatever politicians do. But so he was available yesterday to the public, to the press. And so, of course, because we were hearing a lot about him being involved with the LSU stuff and, you know, he was heavily involved with, getting Brian Kelly out of there. And apparently there's been a lot of talk about, how much power does he really have, and not only in the coaching search itself, but also what may happen to the current AD there, Scott Woodward. Well, it turns out that the governor, Tom Landry, was asked about that yesterday. And I'm not going to play the audio here as I want to get copyright, otherwise I would. But he mentioned, I'll paraphrase him here, basically saying he had a long filibuster about LSU football, right? And you can go look at it on YouTube or X or whatever, Twitter. I'm sure most of you have seen it by now. But in short, to just make it short, what he basically said is, look, the Scott Woodward's not making the hire. The Board of Regents will make the hire. He also randomly brought up the current president, who is all the way in Korea, I believe, for his Asia trip. But not even so much about the current president of the United States. So, yes, it got crazy yesterday, and it got a little weird. But again, based on what I've heard from people like, several LSU folks, and even Josh Pate, and other industry folks have brought up how involved the governor was. So it's not surprising to me or to us in the industry has been following this story for the past 100 plus hours or so that the governor is heavily involved in this. That he is heavily involved with in terms of helping them make the right decision, or not making the right decision, but making a decision, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so him saying what he said yesterday, the whole Scott Woodward thing, it's not surprising. Now, what he did say that was wrong, actually, that was factually wrong, was about Jimbo Fisher. Yes, Jimbo Fisher was hired by Scott Woodward at Texas A&M, but you have to understand, if you've been keeping in touch with the ADs around the country, especially in the SEC, you know that Scott Woodward was the LSU AD who hired Brian Kelly. So he had to leave Texas A&M before A&M gave Jimbo that long extension, and the person who did that was a guy by the name of Ross Bjork, he's now at Ohio State. And now the current AD is, I believe, Trev Alberts, I believe. Yeah, he was at Nebraska previously. So they've had multiple ADs since Jimbo Fisher was hired there at Texas A&M. So what he said yesterday about Jimbo was actually wrong. But I guess in a certain way, Scott did hire Jimbo. Yes, it was a disaster, but no, he was not responsible for the buyout. But he was responsible for this one, and he was right about that. The governor, that it was $50 million compensation to fire him. So you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, so what does this all mean about the governor and whatnot? And what does this all mean? What is? Yes, I know, I get it. They're probably going to move on from Scott Woodward. He's obviously not going to be involved, and he probably won't be the AD going forward. I think when I've heard from a lot of LSU folks, kind of mixed messaging. Some folks, either you like Scott Woodward or you do. There's no real middle here. It's either you like him or you hate him. I'm kind of in the middle here. Look, I understand that if you're the folks, sort of the power players, I guess, like the whole deep state of LSU football, if you don't like Scott Woodward and you think him hiring Brian Kelly was a mistake, and obviously it ended up being the case, then yeah, maybe you do need to cut bait and move on. But other folks believe that, look, what Woodward has done outside of football, like, raising up funds, getting a new women's basketball coach, getting a new baseball coach. So he has done a lot of good things here that have worked out, but football, of course, is king. It makes the most money. It's the big revenue driver. I think from that standpoint, if you look at it from an economic standpoint, for putting on your business glasses, again, football drives the revenue there in Baton Rouge. I guarantee that. Well, it's not a guarantee. I know. It's not it's fact. A lot of these places like Florida State and Tallahassee, the economy there in Tallahassee is not driven by basketball or baseball. It's football. Football is king, obviously. It might be different in like the Northeast or the Midwest to a certain extent. But here in the Southeast, either in the ACC, the ACC, or the SEC, or even the Big 12 now, biggest revenue driver is football. Basketball is a second, but it's a very distant second. Then there's like the other sports. But a lot of these places, again, like these places hinge on college football, right? Like you go, for example, I guarantee you that a lot of these like bars and restaurants, it sucks right now. And you're not having folks coming in to watch the games or whatnot. You're not getting out of city tourists coming in, like fans of opposing teams or fans of that school, of the hometown school, but just they're not, they don't live there, they travel. So look, it is a business decision. If you're looking at it from that standpoint, then yeah, you want to make sure you're getting the right folks to make the right hire. And if Scott Woodward and the opinions of the Board of Regents and of course the current Louisiana governor, if you think that Scott Woodward is not the best to make that, to make the next hire, if you don't trust him, then you got to do what you got to do. So I have no problem with him saying that. Now, I know a lot of folks have brought up this. Some LSU folks have brought this up too. A lot of industry folks brought it up, and LSU folks have brought it up too. That is it possible that his comments, being Tom Landry's comments, and he did it sort of create, I don't know, this sort of like a wall of negativity, this cloud of negativity about, hey, if you're a current agent representing a client, maybe you look at the comments that he made yesterday and you go, do I really want to go to a LSU administration that's currently dysfunctional because there's no alignment. There is obviously no proper AD right now. That's not official. It's unofficial. He's no longer the AD. Scott Woodward is. I'll just tell you that now. It's not official, but unofficially is not. So they have no alignment. They have no AD. They have no current president. So the whole entire LSU administration, there is no administration. There is nothing there right now. And now you have the governor saying more stuff about, look, we're saying all this other stuff about, agents and stuff like that and ADs and stuff. And I think a lot of folks are worried about, could that potentially be a detractor of getting certain candidates to LSU? I don't think so. I think what is the more important thing is you need to have alignment. That's important. I need to have the new president. Obviously, the president will hire the new AD once the time comes, and then they can start moving on with the coach. So once they get alignment, once LSU gets alignment, once they do have the proper structure in place, once they do have the university, when it's not so chaotic and it looks like a total disaster, then I think certain coaches and certain agents, Jimmy Sexton being one of them, will maybe look at LSU and say, you know what, they were a mess a while ago, but that was just at the time. Obviously, they have changed since then. So that's the hope for LSU. That's the hope that they can get this thing turned around in terms of the alignment stuff. They can, get the university's admin structure a lot better. So I do believe it will get better. It's not obviously this won't be the status quo going forward, right? Because obviously you need to hire a school president at some point, right? Um, so yeah, I do believe this will get fixed. I don't think this will be something that will attract any coaching hires. I just don't. I don't think so. At least I don't believe it will. But I could be wrong. Now, as for candidates, again, we talked about this on Tuesday a little bit. Of course, there's a lot of names out there, right? John Summerall at Tulane will be a name that you'll hear a lot about for LSU and Auburn if it does open up, which I think it will, because he has connections to Auburn. His wife went there. Now, of course, the LSU side of things, he's in New Orleans currently. He's at Tulane. Now, the only problem though with that I've seen brought up a whole lot, which is it may be true for the way folks in Louisiana think, but but if you don't live in Louisiana, like someone like me or anyone else, you kind of go, okay, so you're boxing yourself in and not hiring the best candidates regardless of where they are. But it's the same thing of any, in-state school that's a big school, right? It's the same thing in Alabama, right? A lot of Auburn people and Bama people look down at, UAB, South Alabama, and Troy because it's, they're the two big schools and they're not. So it is a weird dynamics thing. It's a weird political thing, but I don't know. I think Summerall could be in play there, but I think the Auburn situation is more likely, at least in my opinion, because of his personal connections there. But that can certainly be a possibility with Summerall. Now, the name you're going to hear a lot about is Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning, of course, is at Oregon. He was at Georgia before. He was on Saban's staff at Alabama back in like 2015, 2014. So he's obviously connected to the Southeast. He's connected to Saban and Kirby. He's at Oregon for a while. Now, truthfully, that would be your number one hire, right? I mean, Dan Lanning, I think if you were to go to LSU, he'd obviously kill it. Like, there's no doubt in my mind he would kill it there at LSU. Recruiting-wise, you bring in the proper assistants, the proper coaching staff, bring in his people, at least in terms of the operations standpoint, they're very good up there in Oregon. So bring in any of this folks from Oregon down to LSU, if that were ever to happen, that'd be great. But here's the problem. He's not leaving Oregon. That's why a lot of folks don't bring that up seriously. That's why I'm not bringing that up seriously. And the reason why is because, well, one, he's at a job that is equally as good at LSU, or equally as good as at LSU, or equally, let me say that again, as equally, that's a character from Peacemaker, as equally as good, there we go, as LSU. Like Oregon and LSU, they're both, in a lot of ways, have their pros and cons, but they're both about that same stratosphere as jobs. And not to mention the Nike thing, right? When you're at Oregon, whether it was like Chip Kelly back in the day or Willie Taggart or Mario Cristobal, you're not only committed to Oregon, but you're committed to Phil Knight and Nike and his estate, right? Along with the school. So you don't just leave that money to go somewhere else. And that's like billions and trillions and quadrillions of dollars there that you're sitting on. Like, no, like he's not leaving Oregon. It's sort of like the same thing with the whole Bama. When Saban was at Bama, and there was rumors about him going to Texas after Mac Brown retired. The exact same thing. It just didn't, like, that wasn't going to happen. That was not real. So yeah, I'm not taking that stuff seriously. I think that's basically complete crap if you're asking me. So yeah, I'm going to take the Dan Lanning stuff seriously. Now, as for other candidates, right? You've heard a lot of Lane Kiffin, Alex Glesh at South Florida, some Matt Campbell even. We'll see, right? I mean, you have to at least consider those names, right? Some of them are a little bit different than others. Or Matt Campbell, you can make the argument that, look, maybe some of the mystique he had, like last year and a couple years ago during 2020, is maybe more off a little bit from a hiring standpoint. Possible. I mean, I don't know if that should scare you, but it may. Again, Summerall, kind of the same thing. Yes, I get it. He's at a smaller Louisiana school, and the folks at LSU have a tendency to look down on them. Should I box you in? No. Of course, Kiffin, we don't look. A lot of folks are kind of torn on. Is he staying at Ole Miss or is he going? Of course, if he ends up going, where's he going to go? LSU or Florida? But look, there's good candidates out there. And I think for LSU, what you just need is you need the right candidate. You need the right person that understands Louisiana, especially, right? We've talked about it ad nauseum here. You need to bring someone in who understands Louisiana. Brian Kelly did not understand Louisiana, nor less did he even care about some other factors about LSU that were very important, right? I mean, Josh Page talked about it, some of the stuff he's heard behind the scenes that are pretty troubling if you're asking me, but you need someone that is at least serious about winning football games and serious about actually being around for the important portions of a college football calendar, but also didn't understand LSU and Louisiana, that connection, that needs to be paramount. And also, what's the staff going to look like? Okay, what's the assistant coaches they're going to look like? That to me is very important. And I think it's even more important now than it was when this job was open the last time when they brought in Brian Kelly after Orgeron got fired. And I agree with Josh Pitt. I mean, I think it's more important. I mean, it's the coach. Obviously, the head coach is important, but as important to the head coach is the assistants, right? Like who doesn't matter who it is. It could be Lane Kiffin, could be John Summerall, could be I don't know, it could be me. Like if it was me being hired, if I'm the LSU person, okay, great, you're hiring me as your head coach. Who's your assistants? Who's your nutritionist? Who's your strength and conditioning coach? Who's your GM going to be? Who's your recruiting coordinator? Who's going to be your offensive coordinator? Who's your offensive line coach? Who's your safeties coach? Who's your DBs coach? Like who's all these people? That's important. Okay, that's one of the things I think a lot of universities in these coaching hirings did not consider that. They just think, oh yeah, we'll hire the big flashy name, but who's his assistants? Is it going to be a bunch of people that we know who are considered high up there in terms of like the best recruiters according to a lot of like these industry types in the recruiting realm, or are they just a bunch of no names, right? Like Hugh Freeze Auburn, same thing. It's like, okay, you bring in Hugh Freeze, but what's his staff look like? And you realize who his staff is, you go, oh, okay, yeah. Same thing with Brian Kelly, too. Like Brian Kelly, again, it's Brian Kelly. I know the name sounds flashy and whatnot, but then you look at his assistants, and it's like, oh, that's not the guys from Notre Dame who are following him. Oh, okay, all right, great. So, yeah, I think it is pretty paramount that you have to get your assistant coaching pool, whomever the coach is, like whomever this next coach is at LSU or any school, period, whether it's Penn State, Florida, Virginia Tech, you need to make sure if you're the next coach going in there, or if you're the hiring people, hiring officials, you need to understand, or you need to know who are you bringing with you, like who is your staff, who are the assistant coaches that will be coming with you, either if it's people from your current stop, or is it people that you may know with connections with an industry that are coming with you for, coming from different places. So that's very important to bring that in because it's the lifeblood of your program, right? So, yeah, the LSU coaching search, a lot of things going on, a lot of people in the hypothetical kitchen, if you will, over there in Baton Rouge. Of course, we'll be keeping an eye on it. There's also other updates too. Like there's something happening at Virginia Tech with a certain coach. We don't know if that's necessarily real or not. But there's certainly been a growing suspicion that something could be announced there soon. Of course, Matt Rule got a huge extension there at Nebraska. Could be something, could be nothing. But that happened earlier today. I know it was rumored within the past 24 or 12 hours or so. But that's not been made official. Let me get some water real quick. We spent almost about 15 minutes on that topic. Wasn't going to, but here we are. Get some water real quick. I'll mute here on YouTube, then we'll be right back. Okay, we're back on YouTube again. Let me double check, make sure the audio is working here. Again, it's a new microphone and whatnot, so we're just keeping an eye on how it's working and stuff. So just to make sure here. Yeah, it sounds good too. So hopefully the audio sounds a lot better than it has in the past. Hopefully, but let's see. There we go. Let me see back to my notes here. Yeah, some more predictions. Of course, we did most of the SEC games on Tuesday. Now we're doing other games. Now we have one from the Big 12, one from the Big 10. So let's get through these. So Cincinnati, Utah. So where college game day is going to be at. Finally, college game day not stuck to a Big 10 or SEC school. It's finally going elsewhere. There is such thing as these other conferences you can go to. So it's great to see the folks over there at ESPN and I guess ABC allowing that to happen. So Cincinnati at Utah. This will be a 10:30 kick on ESPN, I believe. FanDuel, by the way, has Utah minus 9.5. Now, this game's interesting to me because there's been a lot of talk about the Big 12, right, and the Big 12 race and about which teams are sort of involved. And I think this game will sort of help get more of that puzzle put together, if you will. There's obviously other games on the road that will help do that, but this game for sure is definitely going to help you. Help you and help the rest of us understand who will be in Dallas for the Big 12 championship game. And there's a lot of writing on this game. Of course, Cincinnati, I believe they're undefeated in the conference. So they're still for reasonably in firing distance of being the second best or even the best team in the conference. I think they are actually. Let me go check. Because I imagine Cincinnati, yeah, their only losses to Nebraska, which is not a Big 12 team. So yeah, right now Big 12 standings, BYU specifically is still undefeated. Not trying to be mean. Then you have Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Houston. They're all, and I guess TCU's in play as well, along with Utah. So there's your 4 or 6 teams, I guess, that are involved. But I think of this game for Utah, it's the biggest question with them is Devon Dampier. Is he going to be healthy? It sounds like he's going to go. It looks like the availability reports had him off, which means there's no question if he's going to play or not. So he should be ready to go, but is he healthy enough? Right? Because his best ability is running the football. And, of course, Utah have a good offensive line, probably the best O-line they've had there in a while. So I think that should probably give you an advantage, not to mention that's at home. Obviously, we're going to high up there in altitude. That gives you an extra bonus. I think for Cincinnati, their problem is, they've been pretty good in terms of beating the teams they should be, or at least reasonably. But I think of them, they have not faced a really, really good line of scrimmage team at all, period. And they just have. I mean, look, you can talk about, Nebraska's a good team, right? They're eligible 6-2, but I mean, look, they're I don't know how to say this, but Nebraska's O-line and D-line, they're horrible, okay? They're not very good. They're way below average even compared to even Big 12 standards. There's a lot of teams in Big 12 that have much better O-line and D-line combinations than Nebraska. So for Cincinnati, this will be the biggest challenge of the year in terms of facing a really good line of scrimmage team. And I think that'll be the difference here. The line of scrimmages. Can Cincinnati hold up to Utah? I don't think so. But at least on that stamp, I don't think they can. But then again, Scott Satterfield, they're also a very physical team. They have to play. Utah has to play them still, right? It's not just a one-way street. I think Sorsby, the quarterback there for Cincinnati, has gotten better. He's playing fairly efficiently. Could he challenge a Utah secondary that got exposed against Texas Tech and some other teams as well? So we'll see. Obviously, I mean, I think the biggest deal here is going to be Utah if they can actually protect him. And also be able to make some noise with their D-line versus the O-line for Utah. So, again, the FanDuel number on this game is Utah minus 9.5. College Ball Nerds, their model, Josh and Daniel, who are kind of quasi-friends of the program. Of course, their site's available free for everyone to use their model. They have this game, Utah minus 1.8. So they have it a lot closer on their model. I can't disagree with that a little bit. Now, I agree with the pick. I think Utah will win the game. But I think Utah, because of their line of scrimmage and what I suspect, Cincinnati I don't think they're equipped to actually deal with a team that has that ability to really dominate you on both sides of the ball like that. I think Utah can really flex their muscles here. I think they win the game outright. I think they cover the 9.5. And it's not by much. I think it'll be they could win by 11 or 13 or whatever. But yeah, I just don't really think Cincinnati came up with Utah physically, and especially on the lines of scrimmage. So give me Utah to win. Give me Utah to cover. Up next, Big Ten. Speaking of Nebraska, believe it or not, how about that? Weird coincidence here. USC and Nebraska. I believe this is the NBC game. I believe. The Big Ten on NBC. Let me check here. Should know that. Let's see here. Nebraska. This should be the NBC game. I'm pretty sure. I don't know whatever network it'll be on. Just to play it safe, we'll look it up. Pretty sure it is. It's the NBC game. So, primetime game. Everyone will probably pop watching it. I will. This is interesting to me. This is less about Nebraska. To me, it's more about USC. And USC, of course, they've had moments this year, but they've looked better, right? Particularly the Michigan game, right? The Michigan game, I feel like to me, well, yes, it's a very small sample size. They look somewhat physical. They're able to dominate the line of scrimmage. They actually played fairly well on defense. At least having a good defensive performance and a good offensive performance packaged up together, right? For the most part for USC, it's been very uneven. But that Michigan game about a month ago, I believe now, that was probably their best performance overall, really, during the Lincoln Riley era on both sides of the ball. Now, Of course, things have changed since then. They lost to Notre Dame since then, so they were off last week too, by the way. So to me, this is more about USC. Can they sort of do what they did against Michigan, but do it on the road in a hostile environment? Because look, I just mentioned that Nebraska on their lines of scrimmage, they're not that good. Okay, they're very poor on their defensive line, offensive line. They're not that good. Nebraska is not. And I think USC can expose that. I think at least have the potential to. I also believe that their offense, USC, probably the best that Nebraska has faced all year with Jay Maiava and company. So if USC were to win this game, they really need to at least show the capability of being more physical and sort of doing whatever teams have sort of done to Nebraska, which is dominate their poor lines of scrimmage play. Like, hopefully USC can do that. They win this game. It's not a guarantee, but that'll be the way I'll be thinking about it, right? And also, a lot of times when we talk about games and such like this, when it's a very physical game like this, we usually like to wonder, at least on this show, and I guess others as well, I've noticed, what would be the points to score in this game? What would be like the minimum points that every team we need to score to win this game? Probably thinking 27 points, 28 points, 30 maybe on the higher end. I think USC can score points, if the way their offense is operating, the way they, they're able to, have Maiava do creative stuff and him operating within the offense. So they'll get their points. But I just wonder for Nebraska, can they match up with USC? Because I think USC has the potential to be very physical, but they've only shown it like one time in serious play, not counting the G5 teams. Like, they have not really shown the ability to consistently do that. Again, the Michigan game is one thing, but you had opportunities to do it elsewhere, right? The Notre Dame game a couple weeks ago, the game against Illinois, you really failed to at least make yourself look physical in those games. Besides the Michigan game, you just didn't. So that's why I wonder if USC, can they do it again? Can they do it again? Do what they did against Michigan, but have it go on the road into a hostile environment? Look, it will be hostile for them. This will probably be the toughest road game in conference all year. Period. I think it's going to. I mean, that place in Nebraska, I've never been there before. Now I haven't, so I can't speak on that. But from what I've heard from people, from what I've seen on TV, it's that place gets loud. It's obviously going to be a sellout. I just feel like that will be an issue for USC, the crowd noise. Or can they, something on my nose, can they actually navigate that? And we've seen it again. Times on the road have not looked good. They've not looked good in somewhat hostile environments at Notre Dame and at Illinois. So those are sort of your other case studies, if you will, for the season for USC. But again, for Nebraska, again, it's really going to come down to that, their O-line and their D-line. Can they match up? Can they actually play a little bit better than what they have showed all year? I don't think so. I think it will be a big challenge for them, but we'll see. And of course, the other part of it too is Dylan Raiola. If the game really does come down to last second drive, first of all, can the offensive line hold up, and also can he be the reason why they win the game, right? So that also has to be kind of factored in here. So the FanDuel model has USC minus 6.5. Bit of a big number in my opinion. Excuse me for my nose here. Here we go. Kind of a big number here on the road, especially. So that's very interesting. So yeah, 6.5 according to FanDuel. At least at the time, I was writing this down earlier. Now CFB Nerds, their model has this USC minus 11.2. So they have them covering the spread, which is interesting. I'm picking USC to win here. I think somehow, some way, they can be physical enough to get past Nebraska. Again, Nebraska's O-line and D-line they concern me so much that I just can't trust them. I cannot trust their offensive line and their defensive line to make any movement. So I expect this to be a USC game. I think they will show up. I think they might be the more physical team here. Now, do they have the better quarterback? I don't think so. They might. But I'm picking USC to win. But I do believe Nebraska covers. This should be a close game. I think 6.5 is a bit too big. But just in general, I feel like USC should be able to, again, emphasize the word should here, should be able to be more physical than Nebraska. If they don't, then they got some serious issues over there. So, yeah, and there's our last two predictions for the week. Again, we were going to do these on Tuesday, but look, the show got so big with all the breaking news and stuff like that. So, changes have to be made. So, got to move some stuff around. Again, if you're new here, welcome into the show. I know we have one person listening, whoever that is. I know for sure that's not me because I closed out the tab of my computer over here. But whoever's watching, if you're watching it live or, if you're watching on the replay, first of all, again, welcome into the show. Again, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the streams, like the videos. Also, be sure to follow us on X and be sure to follow us on Instagram too. That's our new social media channel, I guess, or social media account we've made within the past week or so. Be sure to follow there, and of course the podcast feed. Be sure to follow over there, and again, subscribe. Upset alert time. We do this every single Thursday, a little bit later in the show now, just because it was so front heavy. But upset alert time. So how we do this here, if you're new here, we usually do these on Thursdays. We have instead of a rating system with numbers, we use colors like a traffic light. So we have green means no upset, but we're watching it still. Yellow, we're watching for the potential upset. Red means the upset's probably going to happen. So that's how we situate it. We have a couple of games here, not a whole lot of games, but still, much like consistently we've seen throughout the year, these upset alert segments have been very elevated. So how about that? Now this one not so much. Penn State, Ohio State. Imagine telling yourself this, like back in the spring or summer, that on the week of Penn State, Ohio State, that one of the teams are going to have interim coach being Penn State, and we won't be talking about the game at all. Like there's no we did not preview this game for a reason. It's crazy that how fast and how quickly this went from being this weekend in general too. And this weekend was supposed to be one of the biggest weekends of the year. And all of a sudden, with all these coaching changes and teams losing, it's all of a sudden went from what was looking like to be a very big weekend to all of a sudden being kind of a low key. I mean, not saying it's a quiet weekend. No. They'll never say that in college football, but just a weekend that did lose some of his luster over the past several weeks or over the past several months. Yeah, it kind of did, but still a big deal though. I mean, now we have, for example, Texas Vanderbilt. All of a sudden has become one of the biggest games of the weekend. So it just shows you how weird college football has been this year. But how about that? Again, just to fall from grace of this Penn State Ohio State game. Just no one's talking about it. Now I know some folks have, especially if you're like an Ohio State fan or a Penn State fan. I know our buddies over at College Football Nerds have talked about it today. I believe they uploaded a video. Haven't watched it yet. Watch it later. But if you were to do an actual preview on this game, the course of the spread on this game is like almost 3 touchdowns, getting close to it, or basically is. So if you're talking about Penn State, Ohio State, at least if you were to do an actual preview, a proper preview, it would have to be one of those situations where how would the upset have to happen? Obviously, look, Penn State still has a lot of talent. Yes, I know they lost their starting quarterback, Drew Aller. He's not coming back. Of course, they have an interim coach now. So how would it have to happen? Well, they still have decent enough talent there. But the problem is, too, how much have these guys bought into Penn State football? Like they have not won, if I recall, a Big Ten game yet. They have not won one. So, they are, it's like them, Michigan State, Purdue, and Wisconsin are the only teams in the conference that have won a conference game yet, which is mind-boggling to me how that's the case. But for Penn State, if they're going to win this game, they just need to eke out as much energy as they can, as much passion and pride as they can to make this thing competitive. Because again, if you really think about it, besides maybe the Texas game, Ohio State's not been tested properly, except for maybe Washington. I'll give you Washington, okay? Even though I picked them to win that game, Washington. I think they were tested in that game somewhat. I think there was some sense of that Washington defensive line actually doing a good job against that Ohio State offensive line. So besides that in the Texas game, you really haven't seen them been tested yet. And I think Penn State can do that. Of course, this is the whole Jim Knowles revenge game. But even then, I just don't know if Penn State has the willpower or the pride to keep this thing competitive. But look, they could, right? You never know. Especially now with James Franklin not being there, it's like, hey, could this potentially be, us maybe removing James Franklin as allowing us to actually beat Ohio State for once? Like that would be such a, wouldn't it be hilarious if that would actually happen? If they beat Ohio State in Columbus without James Franklin, it's almost like that would be insane. But I don't think it's going to happen. It's in the green category. I think Ohio State should be able to flex their muscles. But don't be surprised if this is close early. Again, I still think there's a lot of pride on that Penn State team to a certain extent. I just don't foresee them getting blown out and this thing gets ugly. I don't think so. It'll kind of surprise me. Well, actually, not really, because I do wonder too if maybe, I guess there's the other scenario of Friday and them just making an example out of Penn State. Could be. So that one's in the green category. I'm not concerned about it, but look, we're watching it. Now, let me just tell you this, though. For the upset alerts, or in this weekend in general, this could be a total disaster for the ACC. I mean, all of their big contenders like Louisville, Miami, Georgia Tech, they're all and Virginia. They're all on the road. They're all traveling. So I'm just letting you know ahead of time, like this could be a total disaster, total train derailment weekend for the ACC. Just letting you know now. And one of those we'll get to here in a minute, or actually, well, right now, actually, that being Louisville and Virginia Tech. And of course, no one's really paying attention to this game. A lot of folks probably see this game and go, okay, yeah, Virginia Tech as a interim coach, they're a corpse. Kind of like how people view Oklahoma State. I kind of suspect here, I have a feeling, much like Penn State a little bit, that there is some pride with Virginia Tech. It's on the road, too, for Louisville. It's a road spot. You're off somewhat the emotional win over Miami. Can you sort of get yourself back to reality, knowing that there's still a lot of season to go? Now, look, if they show up and they play to their ability and not overlook Virginia Tech, they can obviously out-athlete Virginia Tech, and they should be able to flex their muscles. But much like what I've said about Florida State and Miami a few weeks ago, about Louisville, ironically, is that a lot of these teams in the ACC, if they're ranked, right? If you're a ranked ACC team over the past several years or over really for a long time, a lot of these teams in the ACC that are either ranked or just the historically good ones, they always have a tendency just to overlook these small schools. Florida State's it's happened to them before. Clemson, Louisville, it's happened to them before. It's happened to Miami, obviously. So a lot of these teams in the ACC that either have been ranked over the years or have just been the big blue bloods in the conference, they just have a weird tendency, man, to just really overlook the middle and the lower levels of the conference. And so far, for the most part, for a lot of these teams, it hasn't happened yet. Like it happened, obviously, to Miami, happened to Florida State. Hasn't happened to Louisville, and it hasn't really happened yet to like Virginia or even a team like Georgia Tech. So it could happen here. So because it's on the road, Virginia Tech against I would at least imagine that they are going to try to play inspired football. There's obviously a lot of school pride there. It's at home. That game I'm watching here. I'm very interested to watch that game. So that's in the yellow category. We're watching it. Next one here, a former ACC school. Speaking of ACC, Maryland hosting Indiana. This one's in the yellow category. Mainly it's in here because it's kind of not really the same things that we just mentioned about Louisville and the ACC. It's sort of the same thing here in the Big Ten, where a lot of these schools, some of like the second tier schools, like a Michigan State in the past, or in this case Indiana, may have a tendency to overlook some of these smaller schools. But given the way Indiana has been playing and their rhetoric and the way they've sort of handled themselves, I don't necessarily believe there's a real threat here. Now I'm putting it at a yellow because it is on the road. It's a Maryland team that this is their Super Bowl game. It's a game that they've probably circled here for the last few weeks and saying, hey, we were close against Washington. We're close against some of these other teams that we lost to. This could be our Super Bowl. Like this could be our opportunity to actually win a big game and make a huge statement for Mike Locksley, who is not really necessarily in trouble, at least if his job security, but definitely this would help make things a little bit better there in College Park. But this could be an interesting sort of Super Bowl moment for Maryland. With Indiana, of course, it's you have the target on your back now. You're hunted instead of the one being hunted, or the one who is hunting. You're now the one being hunted. It's tough to keep it up, especially in this current new world of college football. It's hard to go undefeated, at least in a situation like this. And I just don't know if this is the game they trip up. I don't think so, but we're watching it. There's some concern here, so it's in the yellow category. And this next one I'm very concerned about. Who do you think Texas Tech's playing this weekend? Who do you think they're playing? They're playing at Kansas State. And then the next question you may ask is, well, what's the spread? Is it 17.5, 20 plus? I'm pretty sure it's 4.5. If I'm not mistaken here. Let's actually double check here. Texas Tech on FanDuel. That's down the road. That's not this week. Okay. It's 7.5. It's a tight number. It's just about a touchdown or so. I think some other places may have had it a little bit lower, other sports books, but it's 7.5. It's not a big number. It's on the road too. And this one concerns me a little bit. And I know a lot of folks laugh at Kansas State and they lost to Army and stuff like that. And it got really weird at the beginning of the year, but they've gotten better. They've sort of climbed themselves out of their hole and they're kind of digging themselves out of it. I think this is a game much like the Indiana-Maryland game we just mentioned. This could be a Super Bowl game for Kansas State. There's still a lot of talent there, and there's still a lot of good players. Like Avery Johnson, the quarterback there. He's still around. They also still have, Chris Kleiman's still there. So I wonder if, much like Indiana and Maryland, this could also be a Super Bowl moment for Kansas State to get a huge statement win. Would certainly be a huge one for Chris Kleiman. So because it's on the road, because of the respect I have for Kansas State, and how much, I almost wonder if we were fooled into thinking that, oh yeah, the Big 12, it's not what it was in the past. It's definitely top heavy, instead of it being just a whole bunch of, the merry-go-round of teams. I don't know if that's the case. I wonder, I almost wonder if it really has been just the same conference, but we just didn't have, it just didn't show itself yet. Maybe it truly is like it has been over the past couple of years, where it's just a lot of these teams beat up on each other, and whoever ends up being the top two teams and I'd be the best teams that, So yeah, I'm concerned here, and it's in the red category. I am very concerned. So that one, again, it's on the road. I do trust Chris Kleiman. I have a lot of respect for him. I have a lot of respect for the Kansas State program. It's a really good road environment too. So we'll see on that one. That one, I guess we'll see what happens with that. But I do feel like this could be a potential upset brewing here in Manhattan. So give me the red category on that one. Next one, another one I'm concerned about. Virginia. Who do you think they're playing? They're going on the road to Cal. Now you may be asking yourself, okay, so they may be a big favorite, right? Virginia, right? Good team. They beat Florida State a couple weeks ago or last month. They should be fine, right? Well, in the words of Lee Corso, not so fast. I believe the last check, yeah, it's still under a touchdown. Yeah, this is a 5.5-point spread for Virginia, a top 15 team, traveling multiple time zones, mind you, to California. I don't like it. I am very concerned. In fact, this might be the biggest game, or the best game I feel the most confident about. I think Cal is going to win this game. I think they do it somehow, some way. Again, I don't like the travel here. I just don't like the whole dynamics. I think Virginia has been sort of living on borrowed time. They had the Washington State game a few weeks ago. They have just had so many close calls to where I think eventually it's going to catch up to them. I think they lose this game outright. If I were a Virginia fan, I am very concerned about this game. Very concerned. So yeah, Virginia at Cal. I like Cal here. If I were actually betting, which I don't, but I do like looking at the numbers and stuff, I would pick Cal to win the game outright. And this is the one this weekend I feel very confident about. So next up here, South Carolina, Ole Miss. This one, interesting spread here. So this one I believe is under 14 points. I believe it's here. South Carolina, yes, 12.5. So it's actually a bit lower than I think people thought it was going to be. I mean, look, it's just after October. It's the day after. Is it possible? Is it possible somehow, some way that maybe the day after October, South Carolina gets a huge win? Much like last year in Norman against Oklahoma. Is it possible? I mean, look, there's a whole ton of reasons why you would pick Ole Miss here to win. They have better offense. This is probably the best offense they faced all year. South Carolina is a team that has been dejected over the past couple of weeks. They were so close last week against Alabama, and they lost. They got humbled at home against Oklahoma. But then again, it's still a prideful team. I still have a lot of respect for Shane Beamer. It's on the road, and not to mention, there's all the distractions of Lane Kiffin. There's the whole will here not go. This one I'm a little bit concerned about. To be honest, if you're a very Ole Miss fan, this one does concern me. The line again is suspiciously a little bit lower than I think people thought it was going to be. It's at home for Ole Miss. That helps, but again, I feel like the distraction part of it, much like with Matt Rule, even though now he's signed his extension, when Nebraska lost to Minnesota, same thing. I think a lot of folks in the industry, including folks I really respect, and I guess also sort of thought this as well, that Nebraska-Minnesota game was more about Matt Rule being distracted than how good Minnesota was. I think it's the same thing here. This one I'm concerned about. But because it is at home, it's in the yellow category. And again, South Carolina, it's the same thing. It's Sellers is good. Lenore Sellers is great. It's the fact they don't have a lot of talent behind them. That I don't know if the performance they had last week against Bama, I don't know if that's something that he can do consistently. I just don't. So, and that's mentioned on the road, hostile environment. So it's in the yellow category. But if this was at home for South Carolina, I'll put this in the red category. I would feel very nervous if I were a Ole Miss fan. But thankfully, it's not. It's at home. So it is in the yellow category. But again, the whole distraction thing with Lane, is he fully bought in right now? I don't know. So that one we're watching. And finally, yet another ACC team on one of the ACC contenders on the road, Georgia Tech at NC State. Now, let me tell you something about NC State. As someone who follows Florida State, out of all the teams in the ACC, that's a team I do like personally. That's a team I kind of cheer for, Florida State. After listening to or watching Florida State over the years and hearing from a lot of folks over there, I'm just using that example here. Again, that's the team I somewhat follow in the ACC a lot. Going to Carter Finley Stadium and going up there to NC State is one of the most underrated places to go to in college football. It is a death trap for top 10 teams. Florida State, they've experienced it multiple times. Famously in 2012 with Jimbo Fisher, they were like, the number 2 team in the country, and they lost. And this was after they beat Clemson too in a top 10 matchup. So that's happened. Clemson's been there before and they lost. So there is a history of NC State pulling off these pretty massive upsets. Even the ones that are not dealing with top 10 teams, they have beaten Florida State multiple times. They've beaten Clemson before. So, we have seen, NC State magic before. And here we go again. It's a top 10 team in Georgia Tech, sort of kind of like with Virginia, kind of living on borrowed time. They've had a lot of close games. They've not really been exposed yet. At least they lost. They haven't lost yet. It makes you wonder, going to Carter Finley Stadium, going on the road up there, is it possible that this is where they trip up on the road? And I believe the spread here, if I had to check, let's see here, Georgia Tech. The spread's only 5.5. Okay, yeah. The spread's only 5.5. So that kind of telling you, at least from the Vegas standpoint, that they expect this to be a very competitive game. I think it is. I think this one in Virginia, the Virginia-Cal game, I feel the most confident about. I actually think the upset may happen here. So, yeah, I'm thinking – I think NC State is winning the game outright. Somehow, similarly, I think they're going to. I know it's weird, but again, go ask a lot of Florida State fans. Like, they will tell you, going up to Carter Finley, like, oh, no. Especially this late in the year with a team like Georgia Tech that I feel they're obviously very confident right now. And, look, if you want to have a comparison here, like a historical comparison to this game to me feels very much so like when Clemson went up there in 2011. If you don't remember that was, I believe, it wasn't Dave Dorn. It was the guy, it was the coach before him who ended up getting fired. But yeah, it was 2012 or 2011, I believe, when Clemson was like undefeated or one loss. I believe that it was one loss. I think it was. I know they lost to Georgia Tech too. I just don't know which one came first. I don't remember. But either way, top 10 Clemson team going on the road to NC State. So it was a rivalry game. They lost the game. I think they got blown out too. That could happen here. Yes, I think that is the historical comparison. This game to me again feels just like, or at least the backdrop of it, the whole feel. It feels very similar to the NC State Clemson game in 2011 when NC State beat them. So this one, the Cal Virginia game, are probably the ones I feel the most confident in they're going to happen, the upsets, and I think I'm picking them to happen. So first, second, NC State, pay attention to it. I believe this is a 7:30 game. I believe on the ACC network, so perfect as well. I believe it's on the ACC network. I don't think it's on the CW. I don't think. But yeah, it's still going to be regardless. I mean, look, it's going on the road to NC State. Again, that's a place that's been a house of horrors for a lot of these ACC schools. You would imagine would be like the Blue Bloods. So that one in the Cal Virginia game, I feel very confident about. So upset alert segments, one of my favorite ones to do throughout the week. Going to get some more water real quick, and we'll move on to the Bucs midseason grades here, and we'll wrap up the show. Again, like I said earlier, make sure you subscribe if you're new here, if you're watching live. Thank you for watching live. Again, just make sure you subscribe. It's all we're asking for. It's all we need. The show is free, guys. There's no payment required. All of this is free of charge. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure to follow us on our social platforms as well. Helps us out a lot. Another thing, too, I guess we'll talk about that after we do this. But, yeah, Bucs midseason grades. Obviously, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not playing this weekend. They're off. They get New England, I believe, next week. I don't think that's being flexed out of the 1 o'clock slot on CBS. It might. It could very much well be flexed even to Sunday Night Football, I believe. So just keep an eye on that. Kind of hoping it does, actually. That'd be kind of cool to get a Sunday night game in Tampa during the regular season. Just I don't think they've had one. I don't think we've had one in a long time. But, yeah, midseason grades here. So, of course, they're on the bye week. We usually do this during Tampa's bye week. We did it last year. Midseason grades, just to kind of see how things are at right now. So the Bucs, 6-2, leading your division, feeling pretty good, right? I mean, it's pretty simple in terms of that standpoint. I mean, if you continue to win in your division, you'll be in. So, I mean, there's no doubt that Tampa will be a playoff team. It's just the seeding stuff will get sorted out over time. If they're a 1 seed or a 2 seed, excuse me, some microphone here on for the audio only, folks. Yeah, they should be fine. But in terms of their grades, we'll just go over this real quick here. Offensively, I'll give it an A-. It's been kind of sweet and sour. I know the whole Detroit Lions game kind of gives you a sour taste in your mouth. I don't necessarily say I don't think that's like a bad situation. I mean, you're going against a very good D line there in Detroit with Aiden Hutchinson and company. I mean, look, that's the best defensive line in all of football. So, looking bad against that team, I'm not concerned about that. It's the other teams you played against that you've looked really well with, even with the patchwork offensive line. So the whole line for Tampa, I'm not too concerned about. At least even with the Lions result, I'm not concerned about them. So even with that baked in, which was their worst offensive game this season, or their worst offensive output this season, I think our offense has been pretty fine. Baker's done really well. I know even with the injuries too, being baked in again, they've been pretty good. Even their depth too, that especially at receiver, and tested a lot this year, but it's been pretty good. And a lot of that, give credit to Jason Light and company. They've done a really good job of getting good talent in, either for the draft or for agency. So I think an A- for the offense. Defense, B+. There's been a lot of bad games. The Seattle game was probably the worst one. I mean, look, too, you're going against a very good offense of maybe one of the best receivers in JSN and a really good quarterback, at least as of recently with Sam Darnold. So that one, I don't knock you much for that. But, the defense could be a little bit better. I think the pass rush is a little bit lacking, but the linebackers are good. The D-line, for the most part, is pretty good. Secondary, like I've been saying, it's kind of is what it is. But, yeah, defense, give it a B+. Solid. It's not good. It's not bad either. Now, special teams, this one could be a lot lower, to be honest with you. This could be a lot lower. Could have easily given it a F. But because Chase McLaughlin made that the longest field goal in NFL history outdoors, this prevented it from being an F. It's a D-. I mean, the blocked field goal, the massive gaps on the punting teams, just not good enough. It's been a trend. Yes, it's gone better, but still, I don't trust him. I don't trust special teams at all, even with the improvements staying bad. I just don't think it's necessarily changed that much. It makes me wonder if against these much higher profile games going forward, could that become a problem again? So we'll see. But yeah, offense A-, B+ for the defense, special teams D D- for the special teams. So yeah, just not good enough on special teams. And elsewhere, it's been good so far. But yeah, Bucs midseason grades. I mean, look, I know a lot of folks were putting a lot of pressure on Todd Bowles this year. Look, I think some of it was justified. I wasn't necessarily buying into the whole hot seat talk, but there was definitely some pressure, more or less competitive pressure for him to get things going, at least taking advantage of your division being so bad. And I think they have done it this year. So that's, as a Tampa fan, I can definitely appreciate that. And some more thing here, I guess as we get out of here. Of course, tomorrow's Halloween, so happy Halloween, I guess, early again, like I mentioned earlier. But also, I am aware, obviously, we just had a Hurricane Melissa go through the Western Caribbean, went through the Bahamas. I think it's today it's going through the Bahamas, and it's moving out towards Bermuda or near there. Jamaica, I love Jamaica, which it's a place I've been to before, by the way. I've been there before on cruises and stuff as one of the stops, and it's a beautiful place. I mean, like, massive, great scenery, I believe. When I went down there years past, we went on those little like bamboo rafts, I believe. I think that's what they are. Kind of cool. The whole island just got totally decimated, and it's bad. I mean, some of the images over there, it looks probably as bad as any landfalling hurricane that I can remember. Like maybe comparison to the Hurricane Michael, but that was back in 2018 on the Gulf Coast. But in terms of like, I mean, it's bad. I mean, it's probably as bad as you think it could be. I mean, it's just total devastation. A lot of areas, a lot of people's lives have been changed. Yeah, we're keeping you guys in our thoughts, but it's gonna be a long recovery for them. That place will not be the same, and I am very fortunate to have gone there before the hurricane came, like a long time ago. But obviously, yeah, they'll have a long road to recovery. Hopefully, things will go smoothly, and they get the help they need because they need it really bad. It's words cannot describe what I have seen, the images and stuff coming from there. So, and look, hurricane season's still going on. We still have like 30 or so days left. Could the U.S. get something before the season's over? They could. We could. Obviously, the Gulf is a place to watch for that. Western Caribbean as well. So there's that. But yeah, hopefully, guys have a good Halloween, a good weekend for college football. Of course, I'll be enjoying it. Got my, I know, controversial, but got my jar of candy corn in the pantry over there. I know a lot of folks hate candy corn. I don't get it. I think it's pretty good. I mean, like, it's one of those things you have once a year. It doesn't like, at least it doesn't bother me. I understand why it would bother some people. It doesn't bother me. It's tradition, right? It's Halloween. But, look, even though I'm a big Snickers guy, you cannot go wrong of having candy corn on Halloween. But, yeah, I mean, it's, Halloween tomorrow, have fun. If if you're going trick-or-treating with your family and whatnot, have fun. But, yeah, so have a great Halloween, of course. And that's it for the show for today. We'll be back. We'll do our reaction show on Saturday night, Sunday morning. It'll get posted, so we'll do that on YouTube only. But, yeah, so we'll be back for the show Tuesday. Should be the normal time, I believe. But, yeah, so enjoy your Halloween. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the games this weekend. Until Saturday for the reaction show on YouTube. And I guess for the rest of you on Tuesday. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And we'll see you on the next stream.